Hi everyone, Doothany It Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. It's time for a review of the new Jpegmafia album, LP. This is the newest full-length LP from rapper, producer, singer, songwriter, the left-wing Hades, aka Jpegmafia. Following up the beloved 2019 record, All My Heroes Are Cornballs, which saw a modest shift in Peggy's style toward more pop and R&B melodies. And while I did prefer his breakout record Veteran to that one, he still continued to push forward artistically on some subsequent EPs. EP1 and EP2, the former of which contained some of his best bangers to date. Then the latter had more mellow, melodic, cloudy cuts on it that have come together into one of my favorite EPs of the year. And then there's LP, which, in my opinion, feels like, artistically, everything Peggy has been honing up until this point. Experimental, abstract, lo-fi hip-hop, glitch hop, with, again now, more touches of pop and R&B, and now Peggy's even whipping up beats that have more of a hardcore hip-hop flavor or a rock flavor to them. His versatility continues to amaze, but what I love even more about this project is that he's recaptured that unpredictable energy that made Veteran such a guessing game for me and many other fans. It should also be noted that there are two versions of this project too. A version you can find on just about every streaming service out there, and a more offline version that's floating around Bandcamp right now. Both versions feature different tracks, different track lists, some tweaked instrumentals or song structures, I assume because of like sample clearance reasons. The differences between these projects aren't night and day, but they are there. And while the streaming version does have bops on it like Bald and Cutie Pie, I see those more as EP1 cuts anyway, and ultimately tracks like Hazard Duty Pay from the offline version are kind of highlights that I wouldn't want to go without. Now, I will say the streaming version does have its merits too. This version of the project is more concise, which is not a bad thing, and on top of it, the Ghost of Ranking Dread with its very grim and shimmering wall of synthesizers and guitars at the end brings a greater sense of finality to the end of the record if we're, taking songs like Cutie Pie and Bald as mere extras. And I also think Damn 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 makes more sense in the middle of the LP than toward the end, too. Once more, I prefer the offline version. That's the one it seems that Peggy had to change around or alter the least, but whatever one you want to listen to is whatever. So in my opinion, LP's most exciting qualities are that it is volatile and versatile, sonically and emotionally. This thing is difficult to pin down in only the way that Peggy's music is right now. At one point on this record, he says, "These days the bar so low for weird shit, I had to stop sharing," which is absolutely true. Even truer, white boys beyond a burner, so they think they scarin'. But really, the risk-taking and the weirdo attitude that Peggy exudes on this record is just so unparalleled. And that's been the case for a while, but I think it becomes even clearer as a result of LP being out. And what's funny is this record is so odd, it's so out there, and it's filled with so many unlikely combinations of sounds and ideas, and yet it's still so incredibly catchy, and there are tons of moments on this thing that stick with me even after an initial listen. Whether that's the opening track, Trust, which is loaded with these feel-good rhymes with a chill delivery, floating on top of these twinkling, hyperactive synthesizers. It kind of sounds like a beat that you'd find on some obscure SoundCloud producer's page that's packed with anime images. And that, together with Peggy's voice, makes for an incredible contrast of energies. There are also loads of memorable bars on the second verse of the second track, Dirty, where Peggy is taking down very pointedly trend-dependent artists, their filler lines, their tacky production, and doing it all over these glitchy synthesizers, these industrially tinged heavy rhythms. The whole beat sounds like Peggy made it on a fucking lathe. Then NEMO is so harsh and preposterous sonically and lyrically, I don't know how I couldn't be in awe of it. The track makes most glitch hop sound normal, and there are plenty of other spots on this LP that are incredibly smooth and accessible, like with the luxurious R&B instrumentation and soaring vocals on Hazard Duty Pay, which pairs very well with Peggy's forceful flow and blunt bars. There's also the mysterious mysterious and beautiful Thought's prayer. Here, Peggy is, as I was saying earlier, interpolating Britney Spears, and he's no stranger to covering or doing an artistic nod to 2000s era pop. But in my opinion, this track's probably the best example of that he's done. Britney's original flow and lyrics are given a strange new life within this spacious, woozy beat. Meanwhile, What Kind of Rappin' Is This is a heavenly cut featuring these swirling, wonderful harps and gorgeous vocal samples. Sounds like a fusion of trip-hop and R&B from the future. Then Peggy's bars on the track are pretty much cheeky commentary about the quality of a lot of hip-hop lyricism today, the novelty of his style, how long he's been at it. The whole track is euphoric, funny, and effortlessly charming. Are You Happy sees things shifting on this LP into more of a grimy, old-school Memphis vibe, but with some weird postmodern glitches laced into the beat from front to back. The whole thing is pretty much proof of how entrancing and surreal Peggy's songwriting and production can get when he wants it to be. However, the song Rebound is very different in that it is totally out for blood. Not only is this one of the hardest Jpegmafia beats ever with its gigantic drums, eerie tones, and grand horns, but there's also a great feature from DatPiffMafia that coincides with a slight bassy beat switch, and merciless bars from Peggy too. Why would I pray for your health? Baby, I pray for myself. Then it would seem the final verse of the track addresses some personal beef that Peggy seems really passionate about. From here we move into the second half of the project, which in my opinion is just as strong as the first. The song OG features some hilariously sassy bars from Peggy, some classic hip-hop rhythms, and a sample of Just Ice's The Original Gangster of Hip Hop. The whole track successfully pulls off having a foot in the old and the foot in the new. It's like post-industrial, trippy, hardcore hip-hop. It almost reminds me in a way aesthetically of that wonderful Beastie Boys record I love so much that's freaking underrated as fuck, Hello Nasty. Then the glossy, tired, nervous, and broke has one of the strongest choruses on the entire LP. Really shows that Peggy knows his way around a hook when he wants to pull one off. But what's funny is that I'm not even sure if the song is as catchy or as compelling as the somber, raw piano outro featured on the track, sung by Peggy and obviously a guest, who I guess is miraculously Kimbra? But yeah, that portion of the song is just so goddamn cutting emotionally. It's like your favorite, saddest Radiohead song. Then there's the inventive BMT, which brings together this super compressed, distorted, lo-fi hip-hop beat, some military march calls, and some marimba as well. It's an insane collection of vibes, and it all pairs, again, perfectly with Peggy's voice, which cuts very well through all the chaos. The Ghost of Ranking Dread is easily one of the most epic and linear songs on the entire record. I love TK Mides' very alluring and somewhat eerie vocals on the front end, which are touched up with auto-tune and harmonized in a way where they feel kind of strange and robotic. Eventually, all this builds up to a very futuristic palette, a wall of sound, that wall that I referred to earlier with the synths and guitars layering up in a somewhat hellish and dystopian way. Peggy really nailing the sound design and the structure on this track wonderfully. This is honestly like some left field sci-fi Netflix series type shit. Then there's Untitled, which isn't as bold or as strong a showing instrumentally, but I still think is a somewhat fitting closer because Peggy does leave us with a parting flex and some words of wisdom. So yeah, there are tons of great tracks on this thing. Great verses, great vocal performances, great production, great songwriting. It's so flavorful, it's so bold. I do have a few critiques of the whole thing overall because I do think the flow of the record is a tad bit choppy. There are some breezy instrumental bits that as I go back and I listen to the LP, maybe aren't as striking or aren't as engaging as some of the core songs. I also found end credits to be maybe a bit too scant, a bit too fleeting of a moment. But I still see LP as an improvement on a lot of fronts. Peggy is getting better at writing biting lyrics, employing song structure when he needs to. The production here is easily more boundary pushing. The track list is pretty stacked with weirdo hits on top of weirdo hits. It's so layered and detailed as well. Every time I listen to it, another bar or another like instrumental bit or nuance sticks out. Yeah, with LP, I think Peggy continues to, just flex his abilities as just being a jack of all trades, a guy who's a rapper, a singer, a songwriter, a producer, just a little bit of everything, and doing all of it incredibly well. I'm feeling a light to decent 9 on this one. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Jpegmafia forever.